Welcome back to today's video where we're going to be talking about the 2018 Virginia Senate matchup here between Democrat incumbent Tim Kaine and Republican challenger Corey Stewart. Particularly looking at this Quinnipiac poll that just came out recently, the sample size pretty large here, over 1,000 people taken in this sample, and that margin of error relatively low, about 3.7 percentage points. So we're going to focus on this 2018 Senate matchup, and we're going to go through, there's about 30 questions asked in this Quinnipiac poll. We're probably going to touch on about half of those. If you want to see the answers to every single question that was taken in that poll, I'll link it down in the video description. We're going to be focusing more here on this Senate election in particular, and then also kind of how things are going right now between the Democrats and Republicans in a state like Virginia, which used to be maybe more leaning in a Republican direction, then it became purple, and now it seems to be leaning in a more Democratic direction. We'll see that as we go through these polling numbers. So starting off here, the first question is that matchup between Tim Kaine and Corey Stewart. You can see here we have 54% would cast a vote for Kaine compared to 36% for Stewart, so an 18-point gap there. Pretty impressive for the Democrat incumbent, especially in a state like Virginia where Republicans can win statewide elections. But when you're going against an incumbent, especially a guy that ran on the vice presidential ticket for the Democratic Party in 2016, giving him another boost and a leg up in that sense, going to be very tough for the Republican to challenge in this particular Senate race. So moving on here to Tim Kaine's favorability numbers, respectable, maybe not overwhelming or in the upper tier of the positive spread for a senator in his home state, but still respectable nonetheless. 51% have a favorable opinion of Tim Kaine compared to 34% that have an unfavorable. And then his challenger, and you can see where name recognition comes into play here, where his Republican challenger has a 27% favorable rating compared to a 30% unfavorable, and then 40% of people haven't heard enough to have an opinion on him. And when you're going against an incumbent, this is just par for the course, where you need to get your name out there so people can form an opinion of you. They're probably not going to cast a ballot for you unless they have some kind of opinion on where you stand on the issues, or just knowing who you are in general. So moving on here to the next question, we're going to skip over 4 and go to 5. Do you approve or disapprove of the way Tim Kaine is handling his job as a U.S. Senator? And again, pretty strong numbers here for Kaine, 56% approve compared to 36% that disapprove. And then moving on to question 7, do you approve or disapprove of Donald Trump? And Trump's numbers not great in Virginia, 38% approve compared to 56% disapprove, so a negative 18-point spread there. And now moving on to Virginia voters' opinions of the Republican and Democratic Party. And it's not overwhelmingly great numbers for either party, but particularly the Republicans. Their numbers have just been cratering in Virginia. You can see here only 32% of people have a favorable view of the Republican Party compared to 58% unfavorable. And then you can also see on the Democratic side here, it isn't overwhelmingly positive, but still significantly better than what you're seeing on the Republican side of things, with 45% favorable compared to 46% unfavorable. So in terms of those unfavorable numbers, you're getting, of course, the Republicans on that side of things, but also progressive voters, particularly progressive independents, and the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, also probably more so in this unfavorable camp than on the favorable side. So that's why we're also getting a negative spread here with the Democrats, along with that big negative 26% gap that you see on the Republicans' side. So moving on to the next question, which is number 10 here. If the elections were held today, would you want to see the Republican or Democratic Party win control of the House of Representatives? So 40% say the Republicans compared to 51% who say the Democrats. And then the same question here, except for the Senate in question number 11. And similar numbers here, 42% want Republicans compared to 51% who want Democrats. And we're getting kind of to the end of the questions that we're going to be covering. Got about 5 more that I'm going to be touching on. And then after that, it gets a lot more into the issues and policies and things like that. So if you want to check out to see how the polling went for those, again, I will link this Quinnipiac poll down in the video description if you want to check it out. All right, so where did we leave off here? Number 12, compared to the past midterm elections, how motivated would you say you are to vote in this year's midterm elections? And again, we're seeing this across the board where there's just a lot more enthusiasm and motivation on the Democrat side of things than the Republicans. And we see it here. 39% of Republicans say they're more likely and motivated to vote compared to 57% of Democrats. So a pretty significant 18-point gap here between the Republicans and Democrats on the motivation to go out and vote in the midterms, which will have a carryover effect in these midterm elections in what's viewed as going to be a blue wave in 2018 if we continue to see these kind of separation in numbers here in motivation. It's definitely going to be the case. Moving on to question number 13. If a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives strongly embraces Trump, are you more or less likely to vote for them? So only 24% more likely to vote for him compared to 48% less likely to vote for them. So a negative 24-point spread there. 14, same question except in relation to Tim Kaine, and only 31% more likely compared to 31% less likely, and then 37% of people say it doesn't have an impact. And again, Tim Kaine viewed as more of a centrist Democrat, so the more progressive-leaning voters probably not going to be more likely to vote for somebody that has the same views on the issues as Tim Kaine. So those are probably more so in the no impact or maybe even the less likely category, but also you're going to get the Republicans in that less likely category as well. And just a few more questions I want to touch on. So if a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives strongly embraces Corey Stewart, are you more or less likely to vote for them? And again, name recognition playing an impact in this result. 17% of people more likely to vote for him, 32% less likely, and then 44% say no impact. And that's just a lot of people that don't have the name recognition on Corey Stewart and what he's all about. And then, would you say that Tim Kaine is someone who shares your values? 51% of people say yes, compared to 39% who say no. And then the same question with his challenger, Republican Corey Stewart. 28% of people say yes, compared to 44% no. So a negative 16-point spread there for the challenger, Corey Stewart, compared to a positive 12-point gap there for Democrat Tim Kaine. So all in all, things looking pretty strong for the Democrats in a state like Virginia. Tim Kaine polling well ahead of his Republican challenger. And if I had to make the prediction today, it does feel like Tim Kaine is the safe bet to go on and keep his seat as the Democrat from Virginia. So thanks, guys, for stopping on in for today's video. Check out all of our election prediction videos over on our YouTube channel. Subscribe for more, and we hope to see you back here for future videos. Bye.